Namaste. We're very happy to be here. The name of the presentation tonight is Secrets of the Siddha Saints. Our approach is totally universal. We're not promoting any one religion or any one teacher or any one path. We respect all religions, all paths, all teachers. Our purpose tonight is simply to inspire you to pursue your spiritual growth. We just met, all of you, right? We don't really know anything about you. So we're not here to say this path is the best path. We believe that the best path is the path that works for you. And for one person here, it could be Zen Buddhism. For another person, it could be Tibetan Buddhism. For another person, it could be a Hindu path, or Christian mysticism, or the Kabbalah, or the Sufi path. So we believe that all paths lead to the same goal. There are many ways to go up the mountain. So we're not here tonight to say, follow this teacher or follow this path. We're here just to inspire you. Someone came to our presentation last year and she raised her hand and she said, I get it. I figured out what you guys are. And I said, what? And she said, you're cheerleaders for enlightenment. And that's right, that's what we are. We're just here tonight to inspire you. And if we do our job well, we believe that you will find the path that works for you. You may have already found it. And this will just be further inspiration for you. So this is the theme of tonight's presentation. It's from Shakespeare. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Right? There's a lot more to reality than what we are aware of. Do you all feel that's true? Just on our senses, just on the level of our senses, we don't perceive ultraviolet and infrared, right? But infrared and ultraviolet are there. They're probably right here now, but we don't see them. Probably many of you have dogs, right? Your dogs can hear sounds that you can't hear. So even on the level of our senses, our perception of reality is very limited. But also on the level of awareness, consciousness, we're very limited. How many of you took psychology? Maybe Psychology 101 in college? Many of you. And do you remember hearing that they say that the average human being is only using about 5 to 10% of their full mental potential? That's something that they always teach you in psychology class. They say Einstein was maybe using 10 to 12% of his full mental potential. But just think what that means. The whole human race is using just a tiny amount of their full mental potential. No wonder there's so many problems in life. So there are many more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. And that is the theme for tonight. As we go through the presentation, you're going to learn tonight about great saints from many different traditions. And I guarantee you, because we've given this 300 times around the world, that you're going to learn tonight about things that you never heard of before. We've seen the audience's reaction. I'll ask you at the end of tonight, did you learn things that you had never heard about before? And I know you'll say yes. One man who hosted us in New York City, he came up at the end of the evening and he said, you guys are going to make a book or write a book about this, right? And I said, we hope to. And he said, and you're going to make a DVD about this presentation, aren't you? I said, yes. He said, because I've been studying spiritual traditions for over 40 years, and I've studied many spiritual traditions. And he said, I have not run across anyone in the world who's giving the information that you guys are giving in this presentation. Now that's not to wave our flag. We're just simple, humble people. But for some reason, it's been our destiny to bring this information out to the public. So it's our pleasure to be here tonight and to be able to share it with all of you here. I feel very sure that you'll be inspired. So Socrates said, wisdom is knowing how little we know. That's a good place to start. Wisdom is knowing how little we know. How many people here feel that we're suffering from information overload? Just raise your hand if practically everyone here raised their hand. Think back 40 years ago, 30 years ago. How much less information we were bombarded with, even 20 years ago. The internet, right? You log onto your computer to check your email, you read a little internet news, and you're bombarded with mainly triviality. Would you all agree? Most of what we are bombarded with is totally useless to our life. Who cares how much weight Kim Kardashian gained during pregnancy? But that information comes to us, right? Most of it is totally trivial, but it's filling up our mind. It's filling up our awareness. But there is some knowledge that's extremely important, and that is the knowledge of how to evolve spiritually. That's really what we need. Socrates said, know thyself. Now, Tara and I believe passionately, it's the reason we're here tonight, that the most important thing facing humanity today is raising world consciousness. Would you all agree that the world is facing huge problems right now? You're all nodding. Yeah, huge problems. Sometimes the problems seem so huge that we don't even know if they're going to be able to be solved. What do you think is the biggest problem right now? Just yell it out, anyone. Ignorance. Overpopulation. Global warming. That's always right up at the top of my list. Global warming. How are we really going to solve it when most people aren't willing to do the things that are necessary to stop it, right? Global warming, running out of food, running out of clean water, hatred, war, mankind's intolerance of other people's beliefs, terrorism, huge problems. And we believe passionately that the answer is to raise world consciousness. We need to raise the level of consciousness of humanity. It's the biggest issue today. Because all the problems are going to continue as long as people are in a low level of consciousness. Now, that brings us to an important question. How are we going to raise the consciousness of humanity? Well, when you want to learn how to do anything, who do you go to? Someone who's an expert, right? If you want to learn anything in life, you go to someone who knows how to do it. So, for thousands of years, there have existed in India great enlightened masters who knew how to raise consciousness. And I think probably everyone here knows about that, correct? Or you wouldn't even be here tonight. You know that there have been, for thousands of years, enlightened masters who attained enlightenment and knew how to do it. Now, why is India important? This is a good question. Why is India important? What makes India so important is that its spiritual traditions have remained intact for thousands of years. Historians say 7,000, 10,000, or maybe even more than 10,000 years. So India is a vast treasure house of spiritual wisdom. And for thousands of years, there have been great Mahatmas, yogis, sadhus, siddhas, who lived in places like this, high in the Himalayas or deep in the jungle. And they attained enlightenment and taught their disciples how to gain enlightenment also. Now, this is a quote from Swami Sivananda. Have any of you heard of him? He lived in Rishikesh. He said, "Spiritual opportunity is a rare privilege. Do not lose such opportunities. Take recourse to the company of sages and saints. One moment of company with the holy builds a ship to cross this ocean of life. God is the great purifier. A saint also is a great purifier. God incarnates as saints and sages when their need is felt most. Study the lives of saints." That's what we're doing tonight. Study the lives of saints. "You are inspired at once. Remember their sayings. You are elevated immediately. Walk in their footsteps. You are freed from pain and sorrow. Seek the company of sages and evolve. Satsang with sages is unfailing in its results." So that's why we're here tonight, to share stories about great saints. Tara and I, from childhood, literally from around the age of 15, right? We have been totally interested in the lives of saints. Our whole life, that's our main interest. And when we're in India, we travel all over India searching out great saints. And tonight we're going to show you pictures of them and tell you amazing stories about them. Now at this point I want to give you a tip. This is a tip. There's two ways that you can experience this presentation. You can just sit back and enjoy it, like spiritual entertainment. And that's fine. But there's another way that you can experience tonight's presentation. And that is when we show pictures on the screen of some of the greatest enlightened masters that have ever lived, and we tell you stories about them. If you open your heart and you actually feel who they were, if you feel the level of consciousness that they were manifesting, a tremendous transmission will occur. And when you leave tonight, you will be in a much higher state of awareness than when you came in tonight. You will actually experience a transmission of energy. Because even though many of them are no longer in a physical body, they did not cease to exist when they left their physical form. Have you ever read in spiritual books? Have you ever heard that many of the masters say, "When I leave this body, when I drop my body, I'll be able to serve you more than when I was in my body"? Have you heard that?
Yes.
Yeah. They are living eternal presences that still exist. When Jesus left his body, he did not cease to exist. Buddha did not cease to exist. Shirdi Sai Baba, Padmasambhava, founded Tibetan Buddhism. They did not cease to exist. They exist right now, here. And if when we talk about these great saints tonight and tell you amazing stories about what we've experienced in India, if you open your heart and feel them, they will empower you. They'll lift you. Just like this quote says, "Study the lives of saints. You are inspired at once. Remember their sayings. You are elevated immediately." When we gave the third presentation in Seattle in 2010, a woman came up with tears at the end of the presentation, tears coming down her cheeks. And she said, "Thank you so much. I felt the masters that you were talking about in the room tonight." And it's true. They're here.